Hi, Brandon.
Hello.
Awesome. Thank you for joining.
How are we looking?
We're doing good. How are you doing today? Calling from New
Great.
York.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. To our audience, thank you so much for being with us today. We've got Brandon. We've got about 20 minutes, and we've got Brandon, who is a distinguished entrepreneur in sports marketing and collectibles, but a serial entrepreneur and a leader. Brandon brings vast experience in building successful businesses from the ground up, leveraging personal branding and learning from top sports figures. Brandon, tell us in a minute or two a little bit about yourself, and then we'll delve into the details of.
Well, I'm a serial entrepreneur, as you mentioned. Thanks for having me on today. I appreciate it. I'm a former restaurant hotel person. I started a sports marketing company in the 80s, way before anybody else was thinking about it. I've marketed many athletes, teams, and marketing athletes and teams that led me to marketing collectibles, which I've done a pretty good job. Most people know me as Steiner Collectibles, but I have a new company, Collectible Exchange, that I started 4 years ago. It's kind of a version of eBay, and it's a place where you can buy and sell. It's one of the bigger marketplaces for sports memorabilia, and I'm still booking lots of talent for companies to help them grow. Using athletes to help your business grow is a very dicey,
Yeah.
difficult business, and I'm actually good at it. So it's kind of my 60 seconds.
Very, very good, Brandon. I'm keen to hear about how you've built this brand from scratch. So, you started Steiner Sports in 1987, I believe, with just a one-room office and a modest budget. What were the key strategies that you implemented to scale your business into this multi-million dollar empire that you've got, or multiple businesses that you've got?
I think one of the most important things is you can't let obstacles get in the way. You got to somehow turn in your you got to turn those obstacles into a positive. It's critical. I don't recommend starting a business with as little capital as I did, but I also think a lot of people overemphasize the amount of capital and what they need to get started. I've always been an early indicator guy. I'm looking for something, just get a feeling like it's right, and then I want
Yeah.
to see if it's right by testing it. I'm an extremely aggressive entrepreneur, but I'm a big tester. I
Yeah.
don't not have to go get into the deep end of the pool to see if the water's cold or hot.
Yeah.
We all do that when you go in the water. You dip your toe in. Oh, okay, now you go in. And then you gradually go in. Like that's how I go into business. I gradually go in, and I also think that I go into the business the same way I used to go into nightclubs when I was a kid. There's three ways to go in. You go in the front door and wait online like everybody else, every other schnuck, or you get on a VIP line because you know somebody. That still may take time just to get on the VIP list, or you slip in somehow through a side door, through the kitchen, you figure out a way.
Yeah.
And if you have that kind of mindset, you don't need a lot of capital because you're a figure it out person. And you can't get too caught up in your original idea because honestly, like I didn't know what I was doing when I got started. I just had $4,000, a little office, and I was trying some things. So there
Yeah.
wasn't a huge expectation. There wasn't all kinds of money and everything on the line. I was trying some things. It's funny because a lot of counterparts at the same year were going into businesses and they were raising money and were trying to come up with these big ideas, and most of them failed. I think you put a lot of pressure on yourself. I
Yeah.
think pressure is good. You should have pressure. You should have diversity. You should have, adversity. You should have a fight. But I think it's important not to be afraid to try and start small. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I did with my original company. I was just trying to book a few players, figure out how I can help a business grow by getting you an athlete to
Yeah.
maybe do some PR marketing or whatever it is. And
Yeah.
that's how I got rolling. And it took me about 7 years. And that's the thing. It's like everybody thinks it's an overnight, like 7 years.
Yeah.
My wife was supporting us, and really about 7 years till things kicked in where I was really making a profit and things were kind
Mm.
of popping. But if
Mm.
you have an early indication that something is working and you got a good feeling about it, you don't need spreadsheets and a whole business plan, all that. What you need is to know that you have faith and confidence that some of the stuff you're working on is working.
Yeah.
Now you
Yeah.
can figure out how to scale it, how you get it to be reoccurring, of course. But
Yeah.
a lot of times it takes 4 or 5 years to get a clear picture. And I think a lot of people struggle with having the patience for that.
Yeah, yeah. No, Brandon, it's absolutely true. I mean, like it takes a while. It takes it takes a lot of perseverance, and I'm keen to just build on some of that when you talk about lessons and how you navigate through business and so forth. So let's talk about lessons from some of the sports icons that you've got. So you've worked with sports legends like Derek Jeter and Eli Manning. What are some of the most valuable leadership lessons that you've learned from these partnerships that can be applied in the business, either through
Well,
street smart business or true business?
I think that sometimes people get confused about how important education is. I've never been a big school. I think it's really education is important because that learning never stops. The earners are learners. You got to learn how to learn, and that's the purpose of school. It was really tough for me to get through school, and I did get a college degree, and I'm a fan of it. But understand, it only takes you so far. Emotional, they call EQ, emotional intelligence is everything. Your resilience, your ability to have common sense and empathy is everything. I was sitting in Tampa watching a spring training game. For any of those of you know that, not important, baseball game, middle of March. We were playing. I was supposed to meet the great Mariano Rivera after the game.
Yeah.
So after the game, so in the third inning, I went and got a pretzel. And sure enough, I come back and Mariano sits next to me. Now I got to be honest, I'm a Yankee, and he sits there. I go, "What are you doing here? We're supposed to meet after the game." He says,
Yeah.
"Well, I told Joe I had to do something after the game, and he let me pitch early." Now Joe was Joe Torre, the great Hall of Fame manager.
Yeah.
So I said to him, well, did you pitch? He goes, "I just pitched the last inning." He goes, "Now," I go, "It's just a spring training game." He goes, "No. I faced three batters, which is what Mariano usually did to close a game. 8 pitches. I struck 2 of them out and a ground ball in the third. 1, 2, 3 was perfect." I said, "Yeah, but it's a spring training game." He goes, "No. When I get on the mound and I pitch in any circumstance, spring training, practice game, whatever, it's always the same. Consistency over time equals credibility. You always have to go in. There's no such thing as a big game. So when I get into a ninth inning or a World Series game or a game 7, I don't have to prepare anything differently. I'm always prepared for the highest level." He says, "A brain surgeon, your heart doctor isn't coming and going, it's not that big an operation." So you have to be prepared to play on the highest level. And when I
Yeah.
hear people say like, "Oh, I have a big meeting today," what are you saying about all the other meetings?
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm meeting a big client." Every client has to be the big client. Every meeting has to be the big meeting.
Yeah.
Everything consistency over time. And there's no such thing as a big game, a big meeting, a big deal. Every deal is a big deal.
Yeah.
And I think that's it was a really good lesson to learn on a March hot day, spring training. He was pitching like it was Game 7 World Series.
Yeah.
And I think that one of my in my resilience is that when you come to my office, there is no difference in my play, whether you come in at 10 in the morning, Friday, Monday, oh, it's Friday. No. If I'm working, I'm on the highest level of focus, resilience, and trying to get the most amount done for the most amount of people.
Mm.
I'm not taking the day off when I'm working, and I'm not taking the afternoon off just because I made a big sale or I made a little progress. And I think when you create that kind of consistency in what you're trying to do, maybe you get a chance after seeing, if you're seeing now some early possibilities, and you're consistent, you're really focused, yeah, maybe you got a shot. And I think that's a great lesson I learned from the great Mariano Rivera. And I think that a lot of the great leaders that I've worked with and the athletes had a lot of level of empathy. They not only were able to get inside their own head and see what they were doing, but they also understood the teammates and the competition they're playing against.
Yeah.
Because if you really want to beat your competition, you got to think like they think once in a while and
Yeah.
understand what they're doing.
Yeah.
You got to get in their shoes. And empathy is putting yourself in someone else's shoes. So I think I have a great ability to get externally distracted and get involved with what competitors are doing, see why they're doing it, what I can learn from it.
Yeah.
And I also have a great opportunity to get inside people's heads that I'm trying to sell.
Yeah, yeah, and Brandon, you hit on some of the great words there when we talk about consistency and not
Sorry, I missed that
necessarily.
question. Sorry. Say that again.
No, I was just saying that you say the right words there in terms of consistency or the concept of consistency, which is very important. Um, And that's very good sign language to keep everyone
I mean,
focused here.
I think that common sense and emotional intelligence is critical. It's understated. You don't have to go to Harvard to get that.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
sometimes you get that speed. You know,
You know, but Brandon, I mean, like you're absolutely you don't have you're right. You don't have to go to Harvard or Yale to get that. I think though, the common the leader on the ground like yourself who's had that experience, who would be able to translate that and share that with their staff is the most important aspect. I think that's a critical piece. Just mindful about just moving on about personal branding here and differentiation. So, there's a lot of competition these days. We've got a big competitive market. Differentiating oneself is very, very important. Now, can you share maybe some practical strategies here that entrepreneurs or individuals looking to get into business, or even people in business, how can they differentiate their brands? How can they enhance their market presence effectively? Any practical strategies there?
I think the most practical strategy is try to get to the truth. You know, I think when you're branding yourself, if you can be as honest and truthful about what you're involved in and what you're trying to do, what your intent is, people say they do that, but they never do. Like,
Mm,
you are who you are, and when you know who you are, don't be afraid to explain who you are and what your intent is and what you're trying to do. And the more straightforward and honest you can be, not everybody's going to love it, but that's the beginning of your brand. And then you gotta nurture your brand. Like, you gotta start thinking about everything you say and do is gonna have optics. It's gonna have there's gonna be aftermath. People feel, oh, I react, I respond, but did you think about how that was gonna affect others? So everything you do as a company has an effect on your customers, has an effect on your employees. And the only way you can really get that message straight is by stepping outside yourself and seeing yourself. You got to step outside your company that you're building, whether it's one, two, or 100 people, 200 people, and you got to really see your company for what it is and how people view it. So I always felt like I always wanted my optics to be is that somebody who you can count on. Reliability and trust with my business is critical because these celebrities are crazy, or the memorabilia business is always something that's always been a wobbly. So I knew right from day one, trust, authenticity, critical,
yeah.
and we never deviate. It's a one lane highway. Either you're on the right lane or you're in the wrong lane. And I think when you look at your brand, a lot of times for a few bucks, you compromise by not only the people you hire, but the clients that you work with. And not enough emphasis is about who you're working with. Because when you work with a horrible client, you'll lose employees and it's going to make your life miserable and it
Mm,
affects your brand. So who
mm,
you're connected to, it's always been a hot button for me. When you look at my body of work, even going back to Hyatt Hotels, Hard Rock, beginning of my career, the Yankees, the Red Sox, Jeter, Mariano, Peyton Manning, Mark Messier, those are all high quality brands that I
yeah.
associated myself with. And that by definition, you are a little bit of who you hang out with. So you got to start thinking about the brands you're hanging out with. And in some cases, they weren't always the most profitable ones. But I understand the optics and the importance of how you're perceived and how you looked at in the market.
Yeah, and that's critical, right? It's the optics, behind all of that. There might be some not so great stories there, but it's the optics in front and how you associate yourself with this. So, look, again, resilience, big word here, but when we look at market needs here, your journey, you talk about 7 years until you had some breakthrough moments. It exemplifies resilience in the face of business challenges. How do you stay ahead of market trends? What would you give to advice would you give to entrepreneurs or even business anticipating and fulfilling some of these customer needs? How do you help them to navigate through that, Brandon?
It's a great question. I think it's common sense. I think it's critical, critical. You have a high level of common sense, and that means you always have to be putting yourself in your employee's shoes. Empathy. You got to put yourself in your customer's shoes, And you also always have to be great at the basics and fundamentals of your business. You have to stay on top of that. That's a no-brainer. That's a given. But when you put yourself in other people's shoes and think about what they're thinking about, feeling what they're feeling, that gives you the opportunity where the white space is going to be. I
Yeah.
think it's incredibly important not to get stuck in your own shoes with your own ideas. And and a lot of times you get so hyper focused because you're onto something. You can never see the future unless you get yourself and understand the emotion and the market that's going on around you. It's critical. And I think I've been really good at it because you'll never lead unless you look ahead. And the only way to look ahead is really stepping aside from it and looking what's going on around you and looking at the circumstances because it'll tell you, it'll hit you in the face. But you can't get so consumed with what you're doing that you're not thinking about what's going to be like in 2 years, 3 years, and 5 years from now. I think it's one of the harder parts in business. And what makes it even a little harder, just one last thing on this, is that the risk involved. Like when you get ahead of yourself, I mean, obviously you're seeing something that no one else is seeing. And the risk that's involved and the leadership skill to sell something in that most people can't see. You need enthusiasm to do it. And enthusiasm, the root word of enthusiasm is enthusios, and it means to be with God. So when you really get into the future of your business and you're really thinking ahead and you're seeing things that other people aren't seeing, you have to have faith. And faith is believing in something that even if you can't see it. And it's really important to have that as part of your diet in business. To really get ahead of the curve and make sure that you can stay ahead of the competition and make sure you keep your company growing. Because if you're not thinking growth, right away you're going to lose your people. People only are happy. You know why your people aren't happy? Your company is not growing, or they're not appreciated, or a combination of both. So if you're thinking ahead, you're putting your people in a position to grow. Because they're going to be getting into something that's going to be challenging, and they're going to have to grow to go figure out what you're trying to take them to. And that's the whole fun of entrepreneurism. I always say happiness resides on a cross section of growth and gratitude. Lead your company with growth and gratitude, and consistently try to sell them in on an early indication of something you think may be coming up down the road. And focus on that enthusiastically with God.
Yeah, that's, I completely subscribe to that. It's like growth and gratitude. I go with that as well. I mean, like you've got your higher source, you've got the universe, you've got God, you've and yet you're practical with growth, and at the same time you're grateful as well as to how you're navigating through this. One last thing, Brandon, it's great, but and it's so inspiring to hear about, your 7-year journey or your journey in the early years. And yes, you might be individually focused on growing and getting that next breakthrough, but behind the scenes, who are the people supporting you to actually keep you focused?
Well, that's a great question too. But I'll say this, and that is, there are many days, where you're emotionally. It's nice to have the enthusiasm, but you wake up some days and the anxiety is through the roof, almost to bring you to tears because it's going to work, but it's not working. Should you keep going? Should you stay? Should you go? That's why it's so important to have a nucleus, and that's where your partner, your wife, your husband, your partner, your kids, and always having a couple key people to keep things when things get a little wobbly, and they will. Adversity will come. You will slip on the black ice in business. It's not a thought, it's a guarantee. You need those people to help you catch you before you fall, or help you pick you up after you've fallen. Because there's really nothing great you're going to create without some of that stuff happening. And you need those people around you to keep you straight. I just started a brand new company at the age of 60. Waking up every day, is this the right move? Should I, but I know I have my core foundation. I know whether the idea works or not. I don't know. It may fail, it may not, but I know I'm going to be okay either way. And that's the core people you keep around you in business and in your personal life that are going to be with you, whether you fail, make $1 million, lose $1 million. Those people love you for who you are. And you need those people around you. And a lot of times in entrepreneurism, you get kind of in a silo, and you got to be careful because the risk that's involved, the focus, the leadership, nobody's seeing what you're seeing, but you got to be able to, on early indications, take that early indicator, take that feeling and that thought and a little bit of success and sell that into the people around you so they can have faith and support you with what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah, no, amazing. Brandon, this is really great insights, and I appreciate you for sharing that with us, with me, and with the audience. This has been a pleasure. It's been an honor to have you here. Any further insights? 30 seconds
Well,
before
my
we
book is
close.
free. If you go to collectibleexchange.com, or if you ever want to book me for a speech or a sales talk entrepreneurship, just go to brandonsteiner.com. Go to collectibleexchange.com, get the book free, or definitely follow me on LinkedIn. That's where I put all my content and some great nuggets, videos. Just follow me on LinkedIn. I appreciate you having me on. And my fourth book, I'm definitely hooking up with you on. It's completely different. It's coming out in the fall, about something totally non-sports related. And
Okay.
thanks for having me on today. I love talking entrepreneurship. I don't think it's a career choice if you want to be an entrepreneur. It's a life choice.
It is true that. Brandon, I'm going to be in touch with you. You take care, my friend. All
Have a
right.
great day. Thank you.
Thank you.